Hi everyone, this is Hatman here, and welcome back to another episode of What I Would Have Done. Now, before we carry on with what we're going to do this week, which is going to be a little different from last week, something else I should explain. This hat, not an ordinary hat. It's a little difficult to explain, but essentially it's a conduit. It's essentially a portal to an alternate universe. You see, if I take it off too long, well, bad stuff could happen. Because it's a portal to an alternate universe, and this universe is vast and infinite. So sometimes I store stuff inside there. Problem is, I don't know what else is in there. So it might be a little difficult. Well, not really difficult, just... well, might be more dangerous to keep it off too long. But I'll make sure I do it just for you. Can't take it off too long though. Okay, just gotta take it off carefully. Yeah, then here. Okay, and here we are. Okay, now just need to put it back on nice and quick. Alright, make sure it's secure. Okay, it's secure. Now, as I was saying, I was going to explain what we're going to do this week. This week we're going to do something different. This week is going to be the beginning of a three-parter. Now, as I said, this is a conduit for Portal, Alternate Universe. Some things can fit through nice and easily. As you saw last week, CDs in their cases can fit through nicely. Stuff that's bigger, like DVDs, Blu-rays, all that kind of stuff, a little more difficult. So, for now we're gonna have to cheat and have the DVDs here. Now, I'm gonna try my best to find a different place to use as a conduit. So far, not many results. I could use a drawer, could use a little loft space door. But I need something, you know, secure, as it were. Something that people won't expect. Because, well, if people find out, who knows what happens. So anyway, without much further ado, this is part 1 of the three-parter. We're going to deal with X-Men, First Class. Now, as you know, this is a show in which I'm going to talk about stuff that I'm going to change, stuff I'm going to keep. Now here's the thing. I like First Class. I don't think there's much that can be changed. But there are a few things to go through though. There's of course big giant problems of the continuity. See, X-Men First Class is supposed to be the beginning. That goes into everything like X-Men 1, 2, 3, etc., etc. Problem is, well, stuff like X-Men 3 and X-Men Origins Wolverine kind of mucks it up a little bit because, you know, you see, you know, Xavier being bold, fully capable of walking in, who knows, probably 70s or 80s, and he's with Magneto. And of course in First Class, yeah, things are a little different because, well, spoilers, Magneto causes Xavier to be paralyzed from the waist down permanently. Because Moira McTaggart is, you know, trying to shoot him to stop him from, you know, throwing the missiles at the Americans and the Russians. And one stray bullet deflects right into Xavier's back. Well, Lois Pointer's back. You know, then he says, you know, the lines, "I can't feel my legs, I can't feel my legs." And then of course Magneto leaves. So then there comes the big giant problem. X-Men 3 is it still in continuity? Of course, nowadays we can safely say it's not, because, you know, we got this new universe thing going on, you know, with the Mcavoy and Fassbender version. But beforehand, before Days of Future Past and Apocalypse and so on, X-Men 3 and X-Men Origins Wolverine was still in continuity. So that's a big, big, giant problem there. Because also in X-Men Origins Wolverine, we see Xavier, bald head, and can walk. Of course, not with Magneto. So, how the hell do you explain that? Well, quite simple really. As some of you may already know, Bryan Singer directed X-Men 1 and 2, but didn't direct number 3. That was directed by Brett Ratner, who is not the best. The reason for that is because Bryan Singer went on to direct Superman Returns. Now, of course, Superman Returns is not a perfect movie. Maybe someday I'll cover that. But that's not today. Today we're talking about, of course, X-Men First Class, and, well, obviously, you know, what's next week? Next week will be a bit more hectic because of stuff going on, but anyway. Now what can I talk about with X-Men First Class? Other than, well, I kinda like it. You know, continuity issues aside. I like the whole thing with Magneto and Sebastian Shaw. You know, I like the whole payoff at the end. I like the fact that Xavier is essentially almost like Austin Powers in this episode. You know, when you first see him, he's, you know, in his James McAvoy appearance, you know, he's at the pub, you know, celebrating his doctorate. And he's drunk, and he's all like, mutation, you know, talking like a 1960s, you know, optimist. And that's one of the things I really like about these movies. The fact that there is a character arc for Xavier. In this one, he is, as I said, a 1960s optimist. You know, he believes in nothing but the best in Magneto, believes in nothing but the best from, you know, the United States government and all these other things. But later, it bites him in the ass. Quite literally, in some respects. You know, he believes that humanity will give him a chance. Turns out they won't, because, you know, the Americans and the Russians, they both decide to fire upon them on the beach in Cuba. And of course, later on, it turns out the Americans are trying to keep it all secret. Because they're like, oh, it was never confirmed, oh, in the next movie. And then, of course, comes Magneto. He's just killed Sebastian Shaw with the coin. Now that bit I love, as I just explained earlier. But then, of course, he said, you know, the weapons pointing at us. Go ahead, Charles. Prove me wrong. Tell me that I'm wrong. And so, Charles does his little mind read thing. I find it kind of interesting, though, while we're on that discussion, that he never does this in the Patrick Stewart movies. Now, of course, I haven't seen Dark Phoenix, so I don't know if he still does it after, you know, what happens in X-Men Apocalypse. But I have a theory on it, which I'll get onto some other time. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. He does his mind read thing, looks to Mara, nods to her, like, yep, it's happening. She runs off to, communicate to him, saying, hey, the threat's over. Stop pointing weapons at us, all that stuff. Of course, no one's listening. Now, then, of course, the missiles fire. And then, well, one of the best moments in the movie is when Magneto just stops the missiles midair, right before they hit him. Then he waits for a minute. Then he just turns them around. Meanwhile, Xavier is trying to persuade him to not do it. He's like, hey, you said we're the better people. Show them we're the better people by not doing this. Alright? They're just men, innocent men, following orders. But of course, that's the wrong thing to say to Magneto, because then he responds by saying, I was at the mercy of people, innocently following orders. Never again. Then he throws them at them, and then, push comes to shove, quite literally, then bullet in the back, coffee in my legs, pretty much end of story. So, yeah, I know this episode isn't quite so critique, as it were. We're not really going through stuff to change, but that's simply because I like this movie. There's not much I can talk about to change it. Well, pretty much all of it I would keep. But next week, we'll be talking about the next movies. Mainly Days of Future Past, and there will be a few things to talk about then. Stuff that I would change. So, until then, I'd like to thank you all for watching. And as usual, my big shout out to Sam Crutwell. She's an amazing person. She, as I said last time, has made more videos than me and is ahead of the game. She has like, 5 times more subscribers than I. So, obviously I have to say the whole thing of like, comment, subscribe, ding, dong, blah, blah, blah. Look, if you don't want to subscribe, if you don't want to like, don't want to comment, that's fine. Just saying, it helps. It helps by quite a lot. Now, I'm going to do one more shout out, though. Now, if you live in the southeast of UK, United Kingdom, and you like retro games, there's a place I'd like to recommend to you. It's called Reanimated Gaming. This place deals with all kinds of retro consoles, dealing from Atari to Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega. In fact, they've even recently installed a couple of arcade machines. Free, I think. Over there, you can even buy games from them. You can buy anything you need. You can buy a console if they have spare ones, of course. You can buy accessories like controllers, memory cards, other extensions like, what do they call them? Nintendo 4 scores, I believe they're called. Stuff like that. But one of the main things is that you can actually go there and spend any amount of time you like. An hour, 2 hours, a whole night, if you want. You can bring like just yourself, an extra person, or you can bring like up to 4 people. And you can play any game system you want. Well, almost. I doubt they have anything like Amstrad or anything like that. They might not have any Amiga 32s or anything like that, but they do have a few bits and bobs. They are in Gravesend, basically. Gravesend Town Center. Basically right next to the train station, so it's a little bit, it won't be hard to miss it, basically. So, all I can say now is hats off to you. To you.